The arena buzzed with anticipation as spectators from across the galaxy gathered for the first match of the interspecies combat tournament. Holographic screens floated above the audience, displaying the names and stats of the competitors. The event was more than just entertainment. It was a celebration of martial prowess, a showcase of each species' finest warriors. Today, however, the audience's interest was piqued by a peculiar addition to the lineup. In the center of the arena, standing under the glaring lights, Olaf, a Viking warrior, shifted his weight, his fur-lined boots crunching the sand beneath them. He wore leather armor over a tunic and a metal helmet that gleamed dully, looking entirely out of place in the high-tech environment. Clutching a broad, worn axe in his right hand, Olaf scanned the crowd with a fierce gaze. The spectators, accustomed to advanced weaponry and cybernetic enhancements, snickered and exchanged incredulous glances. "What is this relic doing here?" An alien with iridescent skin and multifaceted eyes muttered, her voice carrying a mix of confusion and disdain. "Surely this is a mistake. Ladies and gentlemen, beings of all kinds," the announcer's voice boomed through the arena, drawing attention back to the center stage. "Today, we witness an unprecedented event. A human warrior, resurrected from an ancient era, will face the finest fighters of our galaxy. I present to you Olaf the Viking." A ripple of laughter swept through the crowd, and a few jeers echoed off the metallic walls. Olaf remained unmoved, his expression stony, his eyes fixed on the gate across the arena where his first opponent would enter. His breath was steady, his mind focused. The cheers and taunts meant nothing to him. All he knew was the thrill of battle, the blood singing in his veins, the call of his ancestors demanding honor. The gates creaked open, and a hulking creature emerged, its skin covered in scales that shimmered with a metallic sheen. It carried a sleek energy weapon that hummed with barely contained power. The crowd roared its approval, and the announcer introduced the opponent, a champion from the planet Draktal, known for its fierce warriors and ruthless combat techniques. Olaf tightened his grip on his axe, feeling the familiar weight, the balance that had become an extension of his own body. He remembered the stories of his people, the tales of gods and monsters, of warriors who faced impossible odds and triumphed. As the Draktal warrior approached, Olaf took a deep breath, steadying himself. The tension in the arena was palpable, a silent hum of expectation. The battle began with a blinding flash as the Draktal fired its weapon. Olaf dodged, the energy blast scorching the ground where he had stood a moment before. The audience gasped, surprised by his agility. Olaf closed the distance between them in a heartbeat, his movements fluid and deliberate. He swung his axe with a strength born of a lifetime of combat, but the Draktal parried with its weapon, a crackling field of energy flaring up as the two met. The impact sent a shockwave through the arena, and for a moment, both combatants stood locked in a test of strength. The Draktal sneered, pushing back with mechanical precision, but Olaf held his ground, muscles straining, eyes locked on his opponent's. With a sudden, savage twist, he wrenched his axe free and swung again, this time aiming for the creature's exposed side. His strike connected, and the Draktal let out a roar of pain as the blade bit through scales and into flesh. Blood spattered the sand, and the crowd's laughter died down, replaced by a murmur of disbelief. Olaf pressed his advantage, his movements a blur of controlled fury, each strike purposeful, each step calculated. He was a force of nature, raw and unrelenting, every bit the warrior his ancestors had been. The Draktal staggered, struggling to regain its footing, its weapon flickering as its energy reserves waned. Olaf didn't give it a chance to recover. He swung again and again, his axe a whirlwind of steel and leather, his eyes blazing with a fierce determination. The crowd watched in stunned silence, their derision turning to awe as they witnessed a style of combat they had never seen before, primal, untamed, yet undeniably effective. Finally, with a mighty blow, Olaf brought the Draktal to its knees. He stood over his fallen opponent, chest heaving, sweat mingling with the blood splattered across his face. The crowd erupted into cheers, a mix of shock, admiration, and excitement. The announcer's voice rang out once more, now tinged with astonishment. "The winner, against all odds, Olaf the Viking, Olaf looked up at the crowd, his expression unreadable. He had proven himself today, but he knew this was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, in the battles to come, against warriors even stronger and more skilled. But for now, he had their respect, and that was enough. With a final glance at the fallen Draktal, Olaf raised his axe high, a silent tribute to the warriors of old, his heart filled with the promise of more to come. Olaf's victory sent ripples of disbelief through the arena. The audience, initially dismissive, now murmured with a mix of admiration and uncertainty. How could a warrior from Earth's distant past, armed with nothing more than steel and brute strength, defeat one of the galaxy's finest combatants? As the medics rushed to attend to the fallen Draktal, Olaf stood in the center, his axe resting against the blood-stained sand, his breath steady and controlled. The Vikings' eyes were sharp, scanning the crowd, sensing the shift in their energy. In a dimly lit corner of the arena's preparation area, Raxar, the alien warlord who had orchestrated the tournament, watched with a clenched jaw. His crimson skin, patterned with ritualistic scars, tightened with irritation. Raxar had expected this tournament to be a mere formality, a spectacle to remind the galaxy of his species' superiority. Instead, it had become an unexpected test of honor. "Who is this human?" Raxar growled, turning to his second-in-command, a wiry alien with a network of glowing tattoos pulsing beneath his skin. "Why was he chosen to represent Earth? What do they seek to prove?" The second-in-command hesitated before replying. "Olaf is from an ancient era, long before the galaxy knew of Earth. They say he was revived from cryogenic sleep, a relic from a time of gods and warriors. The humans, they believe he embodies something pure, something untamed." Raxar snorted in disdain but could not shake the curiosity gnawing at him. He had faced many opponents, but none like this Viking, none who fought with such raw, unbridled intensity. "Prepare my best fighters," he commanded. "Let us see how this relic fares against true strength and strategy." As the next rounds progressed, Olaf found himself facing a variety of opponents, each bringing their own unique combat styles and technologies. One by one, he overcame them with a blend of instinct, agility, and ferocity. The crowd, initially amused, now watched with a growing sense of awe and respect. Each victory came with its own set of challenges, forcing Olaf to adapt, to dig deeper into his reservoir of warrior spirit. Between matches, Olaf sat in a secluded corner of the preparation area, his muscles aching, his mind reflecting on the battles fought. The human scientist who had revived him, Dr. Elena Voss, approached with a cautious smile. "You're doing well, Olaf. Better than anyone could have imagined," she said, handing him a flask of water. Her eyes, however, betrayed a mix of pride and concern. Olaf accepted the flask, drinking deeply before replying. "These creatures, they do not know true combat. They rely too much on their machines, their devices. They have forgotten what it means to fight with heart, with purpose." His voice was rough, tinged with the accent of a long-lost era, but there was a wisdom in his words that resonated with Dr. Voss. "They have," she agreed softly. "But you're showing them a different way. Perhaps that's why you're here, to remind them, to remind us all, of what we've lost." Her gaze drifted to the arena, where the next match was being prepared. "But be careful, Olaf. Raxar won't take this lightly. He's a proud leader, and he won't allow his people to be humiliated." Olaf nodded, understanding the unspoken warning. He knew well the dangers of pride and the lengths warriors would go to defend their honor. As he stood, rolling his shoulders to ease the tension, a loud horn blared, signaling the next match. He grabbed his axe, feeling the familiar weight, the cold steel reassuring in his grip. When he entered the arena again, the atmosphere had shifted. The once jeering crowd now watched in hushed anticipation. Olaf's next opponent was a towering beast, its body covered in thick, chitinous armor. It wielded dual plasma blades, their edges humming with lethal energy. The beast's eyes were cold, calculating, a stark contrast to Olaf's fiery intensity. The announcer's voice echoed across the arena. "A battle of contrasts, of ancient strength versus technological prowess. Who will emerge victorious? As the match began, the beast charged with blinding speed, its blades slicing through the air with precision. Olaf dodged, narrowly avoiding a slash that left a sizzling arc in the sand. He swung his axe in a wide arc, but the beast parried effortlessly, its movements fluid and practiced. They circled each other, testing, probing, either willing to give ground. Olaf felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, the rush of combat, and pushed forward, driving the beast back with a flurry of powerful strikes. But the creature was quick, too quick, its movements a blur. It darted in and out, landing sharp blows that chipped at Olaf's armor, singeing his skin. Pain flared, but Olaf gritted his teeth, his mind focused, his resolve unwavering. The crowd was on edge, captivated by the clash of styles, Olaf's raw aggression against the beast's precise technique. Blow after blow, the two combatants clashed, either willing to yield. Sweat dripped down Olaf's brow, mixing with blood, but he could see the creature tiring, its movements becoming less fluid, its strikes less sure. Sensing his chance, Olaf feigned a stumble, drawing the beast in for a finishing blow. As it lunged, Olaf pivoted with a roar, bringing his axe down with all his might. The blade connected with a resounding crack, cleaving through armor and bone. The beast let out a final, desperate scream before collapsing to the ground, defeated. The arena fell silent for a moment, then erupted into cheers. Olaf, panting and bleeding, stood tall, raising his axe in triumph. He had faced another test and emerged victorious, but he knew the true battle was yet to come. He could feel Raxar's eyes on him, burning with a mix of fury and something else, something like respect. Olaf knew that his next opponent would be the most formidable yet, and that he would need every ounce of strength, every bit of cunning, to face what lay ahead. But he was ready. The fire of his ancestors burned within him, and he would not be extinguished. With a final nod to the crowd, Olaf turned and left the arena, prepared for whatever awaited him next. Olaf leaned against the cold stone wall of the preparation chamber, the chills seeping through his armor into his bones. Sweat mingled with blood on his skin, a grim reminder of the battles fought and the ones still to come. His breaths were deep and measured, each inhalation steadying his resolve. Outside, the roar of the crowd filled the air, a cacophony of excitement and anticipation. They had come to witness history, to see an ancient human warrior defy the odds once more. Dr. Elena Voss approached, her footsteps echoing softly on the stone floor. She had been watching Olaf closely, her gaze sharp with both concern and admiration. "You've done well, Olaf. Better than anyone expected," she said, her voice calm yet urgent. "But Raxar won't let this stand. He's preparing something different for you. Be careful." Olaf nodded, his face a mask of determination. "I know. The true test is yet to come." He tightened his grip on his axe, feeling the reassuring weight of the steel. "But I am ready. I have faced death many times before. Today will be no different." Elena studied him for a moment, her expression softening. "It's not just about winning, Olaf. It's about showing them what it means to be human. Your strength, your courage, they are watching, learning. This is more than just a battle." Olaf's eyes flickered with a hint of a smile. "To fight is to live, and to live is to fight. This is the way of my people. The way of warriors." His voice was rough, tinged with the accent of a long-forgotten age, but there was a wisdom in his words that resonated deeply. A sudden silence fell over the arena, the noise from the crowd fading into an eerie hush. Olaf knew that the moment had come. He straightened, adjusting his armor, and stepped forward, his boots echoing against the stone floor. The gates to the arena creaked open, revealing the expanse of sand and stone beyond. As Olaf entered the arena, the crowd erupted into a thunderous cheer, their voices a mix of excitement and trepidation. Across the battlefield stood Raxar, his crimson skin glowing under the bright arena lights. He was clad in ceremonial armor, intricate designs etched into the metal, and his eyes burned with a fierce intensity. This was no ordinary combatant. This was the Warlord himself, the architect of the tournament, the one who sought to prove the superiority of his species. "Olaf!" Raxar's voice boomed across the arena, carrying both authority and challenge. "You have fought well, human, but your time is up. Today you face the true strength of our people. Today you meet your end." Olaf met Raxar's gaze with an unflinching stare. "I fear no man, no beast," he replied, his voice calm and resolute. "I am Olaf, son of warriors, born of battle. If this is my end, I will face it with honor." The crowd fell silent once more as Raxar raised his hand, signaling the start of the fight. The tension in the air was palpable, a collective breath held in anticipation. Raxar moved first, his speed belying his size. He lunged forward with a weapon that crackled with energy, aiming straight for Olaf's chest. Olaf sidestepped with a grace that belied his bulk, his axe swinging up to meet Raxar's strike. The two weapons clashed with a resounding crack, sparks flying from the impact. The force of the blow reverberated through Olaf's arms, but he held his ground, his muscles coiled and ready. Raxar snarled, his eyes narrowing. He stepped back, reassessing his opponent. "You're stronger than I thought, Viking," he said, a grudging respect in his tone. "But strength alone will not save you." Olaf didn't respond, his focus entirely on the battle. He moved with deliberate intent, his movements fluid and precise. Each strike of his axe was met with a counter from Raxar, the two warriors locked in a deadly dance of skill and strategy. The crowd watched in breathless silence, their eyes darting between the two combatants. Every swing, every parry was a testament to the skill and determination of both fighters. The arena floor became a battleground of grit and resolve, each step a move in a game of life and death. As the fight wore on, Olaf began to sense a change in Raxar's tactics. The alien warlord was no longer pressing the attack with the same ferocity. Instead, he seemed to be waiting, watching, looking for an opening. Olaf realized that Raxar was testing him, probing for weaknesses, trying to draw him into a trap. But Olaf was no novice. He had faced warriors and monsters alike, had fought on fields of ice and fire. He knew when an opponent was baiting him, and he would not be fooled. He steadied his breathing, waiting for the right moment to strike. And then it came. A subtle shift in Raxar's stance, a momentary lapse in his guard. Olaf saw his chance. With a roar, he surged forward, his axe slicing through the air with a speed that belied its weight. Raxar moved to block, but he was too slow. The blade connected, cutting deep into his armor, drawing a spurt of dark blood. Raxar staggered back, a look of shock and pain crossing his face. The crowd gasped, the tension in the arena reaching a fever pitch. Olaf pressed his advantage, driving Raxar back with a relentless barrage of strikes, each one more powerful than the last. But just as victory seemed within reach, Raxar let out a fierce roar, his eyes blazing with a renewed intensity. He launched himself at Olaf with a speed and strength that took the Viking by surprise. The two clashed once more, their weapons locked in a fierce struggle, the sound of metal against metal ringing out across the arena. For a moment, it seemed as though Raxar might have the upper hand. But Olaf dug deep, drawing on every ounce of strength and willpower he had left. With a final, mighty effort, he broke free of Raxar's grip, swinging his axe in a wide arc that connected with a sickening crunch. Raxar fell to the ground, defeated but not broken. He looked up at Olaf with a mix of anger and respect. "You have proven yourself human," he said, his voice strained but steady. "Today, you have earned your place among us." Olaf nodded, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "I fight not for glory, but for honor," he replied. "And I will fight as long as there is strength in my body." The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices a roar of approval and admiration. Olaf had faced his greatest challenge yet and emerged victorious. But he knew that the battles were far from over, and that more tests awaited him. He would be ready, for he was Olaf, a warrior born of battle, and he would never back down. With a final nod to Raxar, Olaf turned and left the arena, prepared for whatever the future held. The arena was silent. The audience, who had moments ago roared with approval, now held their breath, their eyes fixed on Olaf. He stood at the center of the battlefield, his chest heaving from exertion, his axe hanging loosely in his hand. His body bore the marks of the day's fierce combats, scratches, bruises, and blood, but his spirit remained unbroken, his stance resolute. Across from him, Raxar, battered and bloodied, slowly rose to his feet. Despite his injuries, there was a glimmer of defiance in his eyes. He wiped the blood from his mouth, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "You are a formidable warrior, Olaf," he admitted, his voice steady despite the pain. "But this is not over yet. There is one last challenge that awaits you, a final test of your strength and resolve." Olaf's gaze did not waver. "I am ready," he replied simply, his voice a low growl that resonated through the hushed arena. "I will face whatever challenge you set before me. I am Olaf, and I do not fear the trials of battle." Raxar nodded, a look of respect crossing his face. "Very well then," he said, turning to the crowd. "For our final match, Olaf will face not a warrior, but a creature, the mightiest beast from the deepest reaches of our galaxy. Let this battle show us the true measure of a warrior's spirit." The crowd erupted into cheers once more, the tension in the arena growing palpable. The gates at the far end of the arena slowly creaked open, and from the darkness beyond emerged a massive creature, its scales shimmering in the harsh arena lights. It stood on 4 powerful legs, each ending in razor-sharp claws. Its eyes glowed a fiery red, and its maw dripped with venom, steam rising as the droplets hit the cold stone floor. Olaf tightened his grip on his axe, his eyes narrowing as he studied the beast. It was unlike anything he had ever faced before, massive, deadly, and clearly bred for battle. But fear was a foreign concept to Olaf. He was a Viking, born and raised in the harsh winters of the north, and he had faced many beasts in his time. This creature, however fearsome, was just another test. The beast let out a deafening roar, its muscles tensing as it prepared to charge. Olaf braced himself, his mind focused, his senses sharp. He could feel the blood pumping through his veins, the adrenaline surging through his body. He was ready. With a thunderous crash, the beast lunged forward, its claws tearing into the ground as it charged at Olaf. He dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding the creature's snapping jaws. The beast swung its massive tail, and Olaf ducked, feeling the rush of air as it passed just above his head. He rolled to his feet, his axe at the ready, and swung at the beast's side. The blade connected with a solid thud, but to his surprise, it barely scratched the thick scales. The beast let out a furious roar, turning its attention back to Olaf, its eyes filled with rage. Olaf quickly realized that brute strength alone would not be enough to defeat this creature. He would need to rely on his cunning, his agility, and his experience. He danced around the beast, striking at its legs and underbelly, aiming for the softer, unprotected spots. Each time he landed a blow, the creature howled in pain and fury, but Olaf knew it would take more to bring it down. The crowd watched in awe as Olaf and the beast clashed again and again, the arena floor trembling with each impact. The tension was mounting, the stakes higher than ever. Olaf could feel the exhaustion creeping in, his muscles burning, his breaths coming in ragged gasps. But he could not afford to falter, not now, not when victory was within reach. Raxar, watching from the sidelines, could not help but be impressed. He had brought Olaf here to prove a point, to show the galaxy that the humans were not to be underestimated. And Olaf had done just that, facing every challenge with a courage and tenacity that few could match. But Raxar also knew that this battle was different. The beast was a force of nature, and even the greatest warrior could be brought down by sheer power. He watched intently, his heart pounding, as Olaf continued to fight, refusing to give up, refusing to back down. Suddenly, Olaf saw an opening, a brief moment when the beast reared back, exposing its throat. Without hesitation, he sprang forward, putting all his strength into a single, powerful strike. His axe cleaved through the air, finding its mark with a sickening crunch. The beast let out one final, pained roar before collapsing to the ground, defeated. For a moment, there was silence. Then the arena erupted into cheers, louder and more fervent than ever before. Olaf stood over the fallen beast, his chest heaving, his axe dripping with blood. He had done it. He had faced the final challenge and emerged victorious. Raxar approached, a look of genuine respect on his face. "You have proven yourself beyond any doubt, Olaf," he said, his voice carrying across the arena. "You are not just a warrior, but a champion, a true testament to the strength and spirit of humanity." Olaf nodded, his expression calm but determined. "I am Olaf," he said simply, his voice steady and strong. "And I fight for honor, for glory, and for the spirit of my people." As the crowd continued to cheer, Olaf knew that his journey was far from over. There would be more battles to fight, more challenges to face. But he was ready, for he was a warrior, a Viking, and he would continue to fight until his last breath. With a final glance at the fallen beast and a nod to Raxar, Olaf turned and walked out of the arena, prepared for whatever lay ahead.